Jack, we are, let me just focus here for a second, get really nice. Okay, Jack, don't look at the camera. Look at me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So today is October 9th, 2018, and we're at the home of Jack. What's pronounce the last name for me?
Sinder. Sinder.
Sinder. Jack Sinder, okay. And this interview is going to be mostly about Al Schwimmer. But before we talk about Al Schwimmer, I would like for you to tell me a little bit about who you are, where you were born, what kind of family you grew up in, and so if you could please start with, we can start with that.
Okay. I was born in Poland.
Mm-hmm.
My father was a rabbi, and we came over to, we couldn't get into the States.
What year are you born?
I was born 1923.
And where in Poland?
February, Grodno.
Excuse me?
Grodno.
Where's that?
Grodno is, we visited in the 90s, 1990. With friends, and I visited my place where I was born.
Where is it geographically located?
Geographically, it's just a few miles from Lublin, if you can picture that. But I left. We left Montreal. We left Poland for we were able to get into Montreal and into Canada.
What age did you leave?
4. I was 4 years. I was 4 years old.
1927. You guys leave.
Mm-hmm. 28 actually. 28. Yes. We got some pictures of 28.
Do you have any memories of Poland as a child?
Yes, I do. I remember in the wintertime, I constructed at the age of 4. My parents weren't that wealthy. I created a little sled to go down a hill that was not far from my house, from my home, and I thought this was going to be something that I wanted to accomplish, something that this toy, so that I can enjoy sliding down the hill. Okay, I put it together, and that played a little bit. Somewhat in my life, the fact that I created something. And of course, later on in life, I did get into the business of building buildings and what have you. That was, I'm jumping the gun, that was after I left the company with who was my uncle, whom I met at the age of 15, who came to visit us in Montreal, because and my mother wanted to leave Montreal. She wasn't happy there because her brothers and sisters were in New Britain, Connecticut, and she wanted to go to the United States.
For the record, are the names of your parents?
My mother is Libby, Liba, in Russia. My father was Aaron Sinder, and we, as I said earlier, I was 4 years old when we left Poland. We didn't feel we didn't feel that they any of the stresses relative to what they felt of the Jews and what have you.
So your
somehow
family just left for economical reasons. Is that correct? Your family left Poland for economical reasons.
Yes,
mostly.
for economic.
They weren't running away from anti-Semitism or something like that.
Exactly, correct. Yes, yes.
Now, you mentioned to me that your father was a rabbi.
He became a rabbi. He became a rabbi because only at that time they had the act which escapes me this moment, that didn't allow Jews in the United States. So they had to go through Montreal, and there he actually became a rabbi.
So he became a rabbi in Montreal.
Yes, that's correct.
So you guys arrived in 1928 to Montreal, right?
Yes.
So you're 4 years old.
I was 4 years old.
Do you have any siblings, brothers, sisters?
Yes, I have two sisters.
Younger, older?
Yeah, younger.
Younger. So you're the eldest.
I am.
And
the
are
old-
your sisters born already in Montreal? Are they?
Well, good question. One sister was born in was already 6 months old when I left Poland,
Okay.
and the other sister was born in Montreal.
Okay.
And obviously they're younger than I, and they're still living here in one in Beverly Hills and another one in Los Angeles, call it.
Now, so you basically grow up in Montreal. Is that correct?
Would you call grow up? Yes, I was 15 years old when we left
for Lansing? So you
for Lansing,
so
Michigan.
you spent 11 years in Montreal as a boy.
Yes, that's correct.
Was the household? How was the household in your house? Was it Zionistic? Was it religious? Was it just religious? Was it anti-Zionistic? I mean,
yes. My father's father, my grandfather, whom I never met, wanted him to become a rabbi someday, I guess, and that's when the opportunity came, and he left Montreal for another job in the United States. He had to be a rabbi, and he had already the background laid out.
But his study was done in Montreal.
Oh, that's correct. Yes.
To be he was Orthodox Rabbi.
An Orthodox
Yes.
rabbi.
Yes. Now, what kind of house do you grow up in? Is it like a very religious house? Are you?
Before in Poland, I wouldn't say it was a religious house. In Montreal, it was a religious house. That's how it worked out.
Yeah. And did you deal in Montreal? Do you remember where in Montreal did you guys live? Do you remember the neighborhood?
we lived on the street on Outremont.
Outremont, okay, sure, I know where that is.
And it was right where Outremont started, the street itself. If you lived in Outremont, then you're already up in the world.
Yeah.
If you lived across the street, you lived where we did for a short time before we were able to and afforded to be able to move across the street to Montreal. And I was between Saint Bernard and Van Horn.
Van Horn, okay. I know Montreal. I know Westmount.
On Outremont.
Yeah. It's the other side.
Westmont, I must tell you, yes. And my father, during his time, when he became the rabbi, unfortunately, Montreal was going through bad times too. So although he was, he became the so-called, I'll call it chief rabbi at the shul there, they weren't able to pay him the wages. They used to give him food to bring to the family, our family, and that's how we got started, because it was 28,
yeah.
1928.
Hard times.
29.
Right before the Great Depression.
Before,
Yeah.
well, it was already, well, it hit the U.S. at the same time as,
Yeah,
as
right.
Canada.
Sure,
was the
sure,
same.
sure.
Just North America got hit.
And then you decide, your family decides to move to Lansing, Michigan.
My father got a pulpit in Lansing, Michigan. They only had one shul there, right, only one, and they had 70 families. 70 families living there, and that was so. As long as he had the job and so on, the U.S. allowed him to come in, even though he was Jewish. Remember, that was the time when the McCarran Act.
The McCarran Act
was in effect at that time.
So we're talking about, if you're 15 years old, we're talking about 1938.
Yes.
Pre-World War II.
Right.
You moved to Lansing from Montreal.
That's correct.
Now, from Montreal.
1938.
38. So from Montreal.
We were there in Montreal 10 years.
Yeah. So from Montreal to Lansing, it's a big difference between those cities.
Well, it's a different country.
It's a different country, for sure.
Yes.
But it's also a different city. I mean, Montreal's a city.
Okay. So my father had to learn. That was one of the conditions that that they gave him the job. They also needed, because Lansing, the Jews in Lansing, there weren't too many, although the shul had 70 families, which was a lot considering Lansing was not what it is today. And my father went to Detroit and learned how to kill chickens, because that was one of the.
He had to be a shochet.
He became a shochet as well, because that
was required.
That was
part of the job.
That was part of his job of that, and he did that as well. And from there on in, my mother opened up a store for kosher foods.
Yeah.
A grocery store, deli-like thing, and would go into Detroit twice a week to pick up goods, 80 miles away, pick up goods, and so there was enough for the week to sell.
Did you guys work with her at the store?
Yes, I did. I did. My sisters, of course, were still too young. So,
but you did.
But I did. And we did, and then war broke out.
Right.
And
You're 18.
I was 19, yeah, about 19 years old. 18 years old at that time. And I do remember, naturally, that Sunday, that night before Saturday night, and woke up Sunday morning, and they struck my I lost a friend that day.
Pearl Harbor.
He was at Pearl Harbor.
Really?
Yeah.
Who was
He was in the Arizona. He went
name?
under. First, let me just say, he was on the Arizona. He was lost, as it turns out. He wasn't there on the Arizona. The story is that he was, but he was a captain, but he was with another woman that night, that Saturday night, which saved his life. So what I was coming to, I wanted, I didn't want that to go on the record. So as long as I'm talking, and I got to come out with
Sure.
the truth, is no, he was not killed. First, they thought he was there, but he was not there.
He was doing other things.
That's why he was doing other things.
He was doing other things.
And so
That saved his life.
that saved his life.
Now,
And throughout my time,
yeah.
he was a very, very close friend of mine, and
Okay.
we families were
Tight.
And
he was also from Lansing, or from? He was from Lansing. You knew him from Lansing.
No, he was an American.
Uh-huh.
We met him here. Here in this city.
In this city. Now, when the war breaks out, you're eligible. Are you eligible to be drafted into the United States Army?
Well, I didn't want to be. I mean, shouldn't say that. For the record, but it's on record now. I was only here for 4 years.
Yeah.
So my time was not up for
Right.
5 years for them to take me.
Right.
However, I was going to Michigan State University, MSU, and I was only 6 months away from getting my degree in mechanical engineering.
Okay.
Thanks to my uncle, Leo Kaplan, who at the age of 15 came to visit me in Montreal and felt that he's going to make an engineer out of me. And the fact remains, as it stands,
Did he pay for your studies?
for the record, still missing 6 months of my degree when they pulled me into the service, the day we landed in Normandy.
June 6,
That's right.
1944.
That's correct. That's when I got into the service.
What part of the service?
Well, Army.
Army.
And
they sent you
because
to
I wasn't ready yet.
They sent you to boot camp?
How's that?
They sent you to boot camp?
Yes. Call it a boot camp, of course. They sent me to the southeast there. What's the matter with me? I just can't think.
Okay.
Right now, I got to state the reason why I'm hesitating here. I want to make sure I'm telling it as it was.
It doesn't matter.
But I'm wearing a patch here
Okay.
because my memory How old do you think I am?
Well, I know how old you are because you told me.
oh, I-
Because you told me what year you were born.
Okay.
In 95.
Okay. I wear a patch because I have lapse of memory,
Okay.
and I've been, and this patch is saving my life right now, and I'm able to work. I'm able to do what I was capable of doing, but there are patches there. I mean, there are times there where my memory is
It's okay, that's
a
fine.
little bit.
That's fine, Jack. That's totally fine. Don't worry about it. That's why I'm here also to help. So, boot camp. How long do you go to boot camp for?
90 days.
90 days.
Yes. And when my boot camp was up, I had to do something, and they gave us tests if we chose to take the tests, which I was ready to take any test, just because I didn't choose to want to end up being a private in the Army.
Right.
I wanted to be an officer. I wanted to be something as long as I was in the service.
Sure.
Over there. So, as it turned out, at Rosh Hashanah, they had on the wall, the captain's office, had anybody wants to take for OCS, officers candidate trainings, would have to take it on Rosh Hashanah, and I took it. And here I was, sort of the rabbi's son to write. I wasn't supposed to,
No.
but I felt that might save my life if I should go to OCS.
Yeah.
And they did. They sent me. I got orders to go to OCS, and when I found out what those orders were about, I wasn't too happy about it, because it turned out that it was the 184th. You jump out of planes.
Airborne.
Airbornes.
Uh-huh.
And if I should stand up on a place like this, on a chair, I'd just keel over. That's how unbalanced that I am, and that couldn't be. But on Yom Kippur, I took a test, and I passed it, and I had a chance to change my mind, as long as I passed the test over there, so I can get my 6 months worth of degree toward my degree that was missing from MSU.
Right. Yeah.
And I got I went through 6 months there at North Carolina State University.
So you finished your degree there while you were in the Army?
I finished the degree while I was in the Army.
Mm-hmm.
I was from there on in, my life changed entirely in the service. They sent me to Fort Ord, California, and I was at Fort Ord for 2 years.
Till the end of the war.
What
were you doing there?
Till the end of the war.
What was your job there?
I was a corporal. Big deal. My job there was to test all movable equipment that we had. Some strange equipment we had during this war, and we had problem soldiers using that equipment. So we had to, whatever it is we did, We had these tanks or
Half tracks.
half tracks that will go on the sand and will go on the water.
Sure.
And we used to test it at on the waters there at
So you had access to a lot of equipment, post-war equipment.
Post-war equipment is right.
Now, what does the
Yes,
Army do with all this equipment?
Was the the interesting part about it is I got orders after a while. I got orders to go to the war had already finished March of 45, I guess.
May 45.
May 45.
Europe, and in September, it's over in Japan.
And in August, it's over in Japan.
Right.
I was on the water at that time with papers going to the Pacific. I was ready.
They shipped you out already?
No, they were ready to ship me out. I was ready to get onto the water to go to the Pacific.
And then the war ended.
And they canceled. And they bombed. No, they bombed Hiroshima.
Yeah, and Nagasaki.
That was the first. I mean Nagasaki first, and then Hiroshima, and I took the papers away. But back into service, and back into the service until my 24 months were up, because that's minimum.
Yeah. And after 24 months?
After 24 months, my uncle gave me a job. He was a chief engineer in a company for making parts, making tooling for the big three, the General Motors and Ford and Chrysler.
And so you go back to Lansing?
Yeah, that was country.
Yeah.
That was where. That's where.
Now, tell me. Let's now.
So I was working for him. I was working for. He gave me a job because I already graduated. I had a degree,
Right.
and he gave me a job, and I became a mechanical engineer, like my dream I had when I was 4 years old, when I put the sled together.
Now, post-war, let's talk a little bit about the post-war. When do you're working in Lansing, you're working for your uncle, 1946, 47, things are starting to heat up in Palestine. Land and labor.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yes.
How do you start to get involved in this whole issue? Wait a sec.
Well, I have to start from the beginning then. As to how I got involved. My aunt, my father's sister, and her husband left for Palestine in 1922. I happen to remember her. I mean, maybe I saw her once. And she used to send me, for my birthday, in Montreal, she used to send me a couple of, maybe something worth $5 or something, or less, I don't know, or $1, in Israeli money. That's how it all got started. Money. They had she and her husband had a bank in little town. What is it? Beautiful little town in Israel. They had the main bank there.
Up north, down south, Tel Aviv, Nahariya, Herzliya, Netanya, Ramat Gan, Jerusalem.
What's the matter with me? Read it all.
Okay.
No.
They had a bank.
Huh?
They had a bank.
They had a bank there.
Nice. Nice.
And this is all after 22,
Yeah.
1922. And they had orchards and what have you. What's the town? What's the place called?
Rishon LeZion, Petach Tikva, Herzliya, Ra'anana, Kfar Saba, Netanya, Nahariya, Haifa.
This is not working too well for me right now. That's why. But at any rate, that's how I guess I got to when she passed away. She left for my sisters and I a very nice. Her husband had already died.
Right.
In all this time now, and she left reasonable monies, which I was supposed to divide between my two sisters and I, and which we did about 4 or 5 years ago. She passed away long before that, but for some reason or other, we had problem getting the money out and so on. So I gave up on it, and it wasn't big enough to fight for it, and we finally were able to, and we paid double tax by taking it out. Israel took their cut, and Uncle Sam took his cut here.
Of course.
So I paid in both places over there. It didn't make me any richer or any poorer, really, by doing it. And that's an answer to your question. How did I get involved with?
Well, I'm talking
Israel.
I'm talking more about post World War II, and because you actually were helping getting equipment, guns. I mean, what were you doing?
Okay. Now we're coming to the subject that you're here for.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, remember, I was working for my uncle, and we got into. I became a partner in the company. I borrowed a little money from my parents, what little they had, and it was very little, but at least, so he made me vice president of the company, and we came to here, this area, and opened up a plant.
What year did you arrive in Los Angeles? 1940.
April 49.
April 49.
April 49, yes.
So.
And I set up the plant here, and he came from Detroit. It was his wish to be in this area. He couldn't take Detroit's climate. He couldn't take Michigan's climate. He had problems with his breathing and what have you. And so he started a plant here. And I became vice president because I already was an engineer. I was working for him there. And now we had the opportunity to, the company he was working for, this brooch company, gave him some contracts that they can use under our name, and they were because he had done so much for them, and to thank him for what he did for this company, they gave him some of the contracts, and we got into that business with the aircraft as well.
So how does your relationship start with Al Schwimmer? I know you don't meet him until the 50s, but you're working with him before that. You don't. Can you explain to me how that begins? And
Well, he had made a call. One of the fellows working with me in this company that I was now part of had gone to Palestine and met a woman there, or something, who happened to be married. Her name was Ruth, who happened to be, and I think she's still alive here, who happened to be married to one of our people who were working for us. And he visited Palestine, and they came back with a story that we can help them, supposedly, to make certain parts, connectors, and so on, because Israel had, which is no longer Palestine, we'll call it Israel, had parts lacking. And would we know of where we can make contact with companies that can help make parts so that the equipment that they were able to get that was used in World War II can be put together, clipped together, so to speak. Not that easy, but so we got involved in that, but that's not the main part of our business. We went where the money was for us, but so we would help his company. He had a company. Al had his company right almost next door. This is in Burbank, and I lived in Burbank. My home was in Burbank, and it was just the connection and so on that we had met. And I remember coming into his office once, and I saw a big piece of paper on it, and it was a check for $900. And I said, "Who signed the check?" And he sent it to us for payment. And it bounced. Ben Gurion signed the check. I mean, to me, this was nothing. This was business, whatever. It was a bounced check. So Al's check bounced, but he blamed it on Ben Gurion. I know this is not.
How does your relationship with Al start, though? What are you? That's very important. Okay. That's very important. Maurice Commande was he was working for us, Jewish, French Jews. Okay, his father was mother were French Jews. He got a job in our company, and he was visiting. He was visiting at that time. It was still Palestine, and he met this woman there, and so on. And to make to bring just update. See, I hope I'm not just going back and forth here, but this is recollections that they're looking for parts, certain parts. Whoever he talked to in Palestine. So Maurice comes back. Yeah. And he relays the information to you. Yes. And what do you do? And we told Maurice that we can make the parts, and we'll help them out a little bit,
but it came to a point where it was more than what we wanted to do, because we knew this was, we thought we knew this was temporary, and we had stuff going for aircraft with companies of General, where General Motors was involved, and they were our biggest customer at that time, and we couldn't afford
to lose them.
So we were. It was cheaper for them. It was cheaper for them rather than us having to make those parts. It would be cheaper for them. We would give them. Now we'll just call it Israel for the time being. We give you the names of the companies that had the parts.
So they would go directly to the companies.
Al went directly to the company and did business with them and not with us.
Right.
Okay.
But you directed him.
Yes.
Right, you said,
only. I directed him only to the extent. I mean, once they got started, he didn't need.
No.
He didn't need me.
Right.
He didn't need us at all.
Right.
He was able to.
But it's like, if I can't help you, I'm going to tell you who can help you, and go here and go there.
That's exactly what my boss wanted.
Your uncle.
My uncle.
He
wanted to continue with the big three.
Right.
But when we left, when we opened up the one here, over here, by then, of course, naturally, everything was moving rather, pretty smoothly.
Now, you don't meet Al Schwimmer at this time physically. You don't meet him. You only met him in the 50s, correct?
Yes, in the 50s. You're that. If I believe 54. I don't know where I got 54 from. It just came to me.
Came to you. What kind of person was he?
Well, Al, he was for his build, he was a quiet man. But when I got to know him better, I can only say that at that time he was not a very happy man, because he felt he was doing certain things for Israel. By now it's Israel.
Yeah.
And this is just right before let's bring it up to date. Right before the 6-Day War, that somehow he expected, because he was involved with the aircraft and what have you, that he should get a little bit more recognition. It was not the money.
No.
But just a little more recognition. And of course, right after that, we had 7 years later. We had 7 years. Yeah, we had this. We had the next war, the Yom Kippur War, and by that time he felt that he had done. That he had done so much for Israel that he should get some recognition, and he didn't get recognition for what he did, whatever he did, with even to the point where he lost his citizenship papers along with.
Eventually, he was pardoned. Eventually.
Yes, of course. Very quickly. It was a matter of 3 months. They lost. He and Hank lost their. They couldn't travel anymore for those few months. That's all it was.
And you said that he was also locked up?
He was,
Put in jail, you said. He spent a few nights in jail.
I don't know where and what. He didn't say.
What was your relationship with him?
Well, the relationship was the fact that he had gotten a little piece of land, and he wanted to get it developed, and that was my forte. So this land was I'm thinking of the name of the city. I was there several times. Right now I have a senior moment.
In Israel?
In Israel.
It doesn't matter.
I'll come to it.
Yeah, it's fine.
I'll come. It's a city where once in a while they would send the missiles over.
Sderot?
Siderat. Siderat. Yes. Siderat. I went there a couple of times to visit with him there. He was going to build a school. It was going to be in his name and what have you. And of course, he got some money out of me too. So, no, a pretty fair amount, because we were doing very well with our business.
Right.
And so I was getting a decent salary now and everything else. But he was still feeling that he didn't, after those 2 wars, he felt that they should have given him a little bit more covet, I guess, and that was troubling him.
It was troubling him.
But the fact is, he finally did get the
Israeli prize.
the Israeli prize, and so I still saw him after those days. Every time I would come there, we'd get together and spend some time together, if his wife let him.
Oh yeah, she was controlling?
Yeah, she felt he was giving too much of his life. I shouldn't really say that. That wouldn't be fair. He did a lot of traveling, and she was still living they got an apartment in New York. He lived in New York.
Yeah.
He was an American.
Yeah.
But he spent a good part of his time
In Israel.
Right after the wars.
Yeah.
He paid all of the time where he rented an apartment then and started his life in Israel. And she came over, of course, and incidentally, he has a grandchild living here, right here in the valley. Yeah, he has a grandchild that lives here.
Jack,
Al.
I think we're good. I think we're good. I think we got what we needed.
I'm sorry. I did a lot of hesitating. I don't usually do.
Jack, it's okay. Believe me, it's absolutely fine. It's absolutely fine.
I just felt when I heard that you guys were what we're doing, I said maybe this way I get a chance to make Al out like he wanted, that the best of him. And the truth of the matter is, he was the best. He was the other ones I didn't know that well.
Sure.
The only one I knew quite well, whom I met a number of times and had dinner with them several times, was the I'm talking about now the Israelis, was the president that just passed away a year ago. Huh?
Shimon Peres.
Shimon Peres.
Yeah.
He was the only one I could get to, and that was, I thought, was phenomenal. Sweetest guy in the world.
On what occasions did you meet him?
Friends.
Friends.
Yes, I met him not so much here. Well, in Lansing when he came here too, but friends in New York, a developer in New York, whose home we were at. I met him there, and from there on in, we would be bumping into each other because he did a lot of traveling too. Paris did, and got to know him very, very well, to a point where I am now associated with. We made him president when he lost. When he got. I'm not on camera now, right?
No.
Good. When he lost his, when he gave up his job as president of Israel, you know, back, how long ago was that? What, 5 years ago?
Yeah.
4 years ago, whatever. We made him president. We made him president of the Museum of Tolerance here. You see the Museum of Tolerance? I'm associated with them. I got money in it.
Okay.
I got big money in it.
Okay.
I mean, big money to me, that is. I'm not that wealthy, but that's big money. We're, not to change any subject, we got there. Did you see what we're doing in Palestine?
In Jerusalem.
In Jerusalem?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yes,
in Jerusalem.
It's being constructed now.
Well, we started. The last time I saw it was in when we broke ground in May. In April, of 14.
Yeah. Well, it's still being built.
I want because
I walk by it at least a few times a week.
I can't figure out what the hell they're doing there right now, and he won't tell me. I've got a lot of money involved in that one. Big money. In Israel.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
in Israel, I've got big money involved, and commitment, and I've got commitment involved with more big money when they finish. I'm supposed to be one of the big 10 there. Okay. The Sinder, Jack Sinder is supposed. I don't know if I'm going to give Rita any credit. I can't tell you, but Mayor is going to be, he's head of the whole thing, and the rabbi, I see him almost every week. We have a group of men,
yeah.
and